He ran wherever he wanted. There were in-game situations I couldn't control. Now that he's gone, I will control everything, without exception. That is Luis Enrique, reflecting on the departure of Kylian Mbappé from Paris Saint-Germain with a disconcerting calm. You remove the highest-scoring individual talent on the planet, promise to implement total control, and the following season, PSG becomes the champions of the Champions League. More surprising than the trophy is how they did it. They morphed into one of the most fluid, creative teams in Europe. Look across the continent at Serie A, and you find a similar anomaly at Como. Cesc Fabregas is managing a squad built on a fraction of a top-tier budget, entirely devoid of superstars. Yet they play a brand of football so deeply complex and creative that it forces analysts to pay attention. Two completely different clubs, two opposite paths on the surface. Dictating total control over a squad is supposed to kill freedom. Instead, both of these managers used it to produce teams that are more inventive and unpredictable than the stars they replaced. To see why, we have to look at what elite football has spent the last 20 years doing to its players. For at least 2 decades, the dominant logic of the sport has been systems. The more organized the team, the more predictable the positions, the better the result. Positional play, popularized heavily by Pep Guardiola, became almost a religion across Europe. But it created a silent side effect. Juan Malilo, one of the modern fathers of positional play, admitted his regret over what the system has become. Players are trained as robotic executors, taking exactly 2 touches, standing in exact coordinates, following a rigid protocol regardless of the actual state of the match. This wasn't an accident. A top club manager today rarely gets a full year before dismissal rumors start. Under extreme pressure, coaches choose to build highly predictable, closed systems. They want movements that they can measure and results they can justify to a board of directors, rather than trusting a messy, unpredictable, creative process. By commanding every movement to eliminate mistakes, clubs slowly strip away individual initiative. They successfully organize their teams, but in doing so, they systematically destroy the very creativity they complain is missing from the modern game. The trap exists because we confuse 2 different definitions of the word control. The first is rigid control. This is the modern default, where the coach treats players like video game avatars, explicitly commanding them to run to a specific spot and pass to a specific target. Analytically, that rigid structure works flawlessly on a tactical whiteboard. It collapses on grass. The moment opponents act unpredictably, the predetermined script breaks down, leaving highly drilled players frozen, unsure of what to do next. The alternative is liberating control. Here, the coach refuses to dictate the physical action. Instead, they drill an incredibly deep understanding of what the team requires in a dozen different scenarios. The player is given a cognitive framework, not a physical manual. True control over a game doesn't mean telling a midfielder exactly where to step. It means ensuring that midfielder can read the live action and instantly recognize the optimal choice. Let's look at how Fabregas applies this at Como. He drills these abstract principles. First, passing triangles, off-ball movement into empty spaces, support options for the ball carrier, and positional rotations. He trains these until they become absolute instinct. He doesn't tell them exactly when or where to use them. The actual attacking pattern is decided in real time by the players on the pitch, reacting directly to the defensive posture the opponent presents. If the defense presses high, the players instantly recognize it and shift their shape to exploit the space left behind. Nico Paz is the perfect micro-example of this. He frequently receives the ball with his back to goal under heavy pressure. He doesn't panic or force a pre-planned pass. He holds. He feels the exact moment the defender overcommits and then turns into the space the defender just abandoned. It looks like random street improvisation, but it is trained, high-level anticipation. Giving average players this much cognitive freedom doesn't result in a lazy team. By the numbers, Como executes the most intense pressing in Serie A, measured by their low passes allowed per defensive action. They outpress Juventus and Atalanta, all while thinking for themselves. When you give a squad the cognitive tools to read the opponent and make their own collective decisions, they become almost impossible to scout. A team that thinks and adapts on the fly is infinitely harder to neutralize than a predictable system packed with superstars. This brings us straight back to Luis Enrique and the departure of Kylian Mbappe. Mbappe possesses immense, undeniable individual brilliance, but that level of absolute individuality directly clashed with the system Luis Enrique was trying to build at PSG. In a highly tuned collective, total individuality acts as static noise. One uncoordinated run or a decision to hold the ball rather than move it breaks a pass-rush sequence that requires the synchronized movement of the entire unit to succeed. So when Luis Enrique said he would take absolute control, he wasn't threatening to micromanage his players' footsteps. He meant he was finally going to exert total control over the shared tactical language of the team. With the primary disruptor removed, the remaining 11 players were forced to speak the exact same language. Because everyone understood the collective structure, individuals were completely safe to improvise within it. Whether it is born on concrete street courts or inside elite stadiums, true creativity requires necessity, and it requires deep mutual understanding. The tactical system is simply the scaffold. The brilliance happens when a team finally stops waiting for orders and starts thinking together.